So this is a brainchild, and this is our first kind of stab at Health Equity CT, Health Equity Podcast, focusing on the state of Connecticut.
Yes.
Different initiatives. We want to talk about health equity in its entirety, and we do understand that a lot of people don't know what it is. I struggle sometimes talking about it
Yeah.
because it encompasses so many different aspects of our lives. It looks at systems,
Mhm.
and I think systems are very difficult. It's not just one factor. We have to take into account one thing leads to another, which
Yep.
causes another, which causes another. And
Yep.
so we want to kind of demystify some of that, if you
Yes.
will, and really bring folk to the table because I bet you more people are working in health equity than they know.
Yep.
They don't even know that you're doing health
Yep.
equity work. They're just
Yep.
like, I'm
I'm
ab-
doing my thing
right.
and not understanding that it's a piece of the bigger puzzle.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yes. Who are you?
So, Stephanie R. Clark, Stephanie Renee Clark. I am a health, nope, senior health program coordinator at Ledgelight Health District, and I coordinate the Health Improvement Collaborative of Southeastern Connecticut. I am also a fellow from the Connecticut Health Foundation Health Leadership Fellows Program, and I am a founder and co chair of the Black Health Collective.
That's so many things.
Yes,
I
I
love you all the
all the
things.
things. I'm also like a preacher's kid, an
Yes.
agitator, a friend, an advocate, all of that. A listener. I think that's good for right now.
I love that.
And who are you?
Who am I? My name is Lawrence Young. I recently started the position with the Connecticut Department of Public Health as section. No, this is as public health section chief working in the Department of Health Equity. So super excited to talk about it. I bring a perspective from working from academic research, working with hospital systems with health equity, and working in federally qualified health centers. So I'm really excited to take all of that and pour that into a state agency and talk about how we can expand that work throughout the state and talk about it. Um, I think like fun facts about me, I am from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hmm.
That's a big part of my identity. I think you can't see my Crocs, but I bought an Outcast. What do they call a little doohickey? The whistle thing on the top of the shoe?
I can't even think what the thing
Whatever it is, a
is.
little
Mm-hmm.
thing that you put on. I had Outcast, big, very important.
I was
Outcasts
about
are
to say
very important
that's
to
a
Atlanta.
really Atlanta thing.
Yes, a super Atlanta, and I was like, thank you, Connecticut, for giving me that. But a big part of my identity from being from the South. I've been in Connecticut for 10 years. So I'm truly invested, and started out because I too am a Connecticut Health Foundation Health Leadership Fellows. I came to Connecticut on a health equity fellowship that was funded from the Connecticut Health
I
Foundation. Shout
love
out to
it.
Pat Baker. So
Yes.
I think to still like start. And I didn't, and fun fact, which I'm gonna tell a secret. I didn't know what health equity was when I took my first job 10 years ago. I
Okay.
knew what like the WHO definition of health
Mm-hmm.
was, like the absence of diseases and infirmity, that
Mm-hmm.
one. And I kind of got what equity was in like a financial sense
Mm-hmm.
of like and housing equity and all of that. So I was like, well, I quickly Googled and put those words together and I started this journey. So I've really been excited to kind of see the evolution, see how I can apply health equity to my roles. I think, we saw a lot of that when COVID hit.
Mm.
I was working at Charter Oak Health Center in Hartford, which was like right on the ground doing the work. Just FQHCs were some of the first to provide COVID testing in the
Yep.
community. Those patients were at the highest risk. I mean, they had like I think the CDC did all these health equity risk factors about your neighborhood housing environment, frontline worker, lack of
Yeah.
resources, communal living, intergenerational communal living, and it was all of it
All the
impacts our
patients,
whole
right?
patient population, right? And so to watch how we had to apply health equity in real time to that response to create equitable opportunities and not be a barriers for testing. So
Mm.
my CEO was very pivotal in getting testing to directly to the community. So that was one barrier we eliminated.
Yeah.
The creating equity in that way, like we're meeting people where they are. We did the
Yeah.
same thing with when the vaccine rolled out. So those types of applications are really interesting and exciting for me. That's enough.
No, so I love that you reminded me of another example of the way health equity shows up, right? So the vaccine rollout.
Mm-hmm.
and the state had some registration form.
Vams.
Yes.
Vams.
Can we look at the
The
fake
diva.
audience?
Vams is an icon.
Oh my God.
The legend.
So, like, I remember my friend and colleague telling me, like, when they were setting up clinics in New London, there were hardly any New London residents. There were
Right.
folks coming from the more affluent towns, right? Because they
Yes.
have the better internet access,
Yep.
the access in general, right?
Yes.
So, Ledgelight Health District took it upon themselves, under the leadership of Jen Mogio, who is the current director of health.
Hi, Jen. We love Jen. Jen will be here soon. I don't know if she
Yes.
knows that yet, but she
Yeah.
will be.
Yes, putting her on notice officially today. And she created a registration link. And what she did was she reached out to trusted partners, um, who represent members of Black African American communities, our Haitian brothers and sisters, our Indigenous brothers and sisters, our Latin brothers and sisters. And she got it out, that link out. Once they set up a clinic, she would get the word out to the trusted folks in the community and leave it up to us to get the word out to folks, and then would open it up more broadly. And they said there was an almost immediate browning
Mm-hmm.
of the folks that showed up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we're overrepresented in essential workers. We were overrepresented in the folks who were hospitalized and dying from COVID. And now that the opportunity to be vaccinated, we were sorely underrepresented. So, like, having that lens and seeing what's happening and taking action to do something different and have a different outcome. So, super excited about that. So, I want to talk more about you.
Me? Am I the first guest on
You
our own
are.
podcast?
You are. So I want to talk to you about um, your public health and community health trajectory, your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I consider my work like connected to who I am as like a person. Like I feel like it's part of my DNA and part of my purpose. I'm like why I'm here, right? So I consider it like a calling of sorts. The same way like my mom was called to minister,
Mm-hmm.
to be a preacher. Um, when did you realize that this work was your calling?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would call it a calling.
Mm-hmm.
I think as I think about that question, health equity, public health hit a lot of things that were important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
on a baseline level, I wanted to help people.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do something helpful, connecting with the people. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought about being a doctor at one point. I wanted to be a psychologist at one point. The hard sciences weren't my jam. I did enough in them, but this thing about public health started popping up in community education. So I
Mm-hmm.
talk about, I'll say this often, people are doing health equity work and don't know that they're doing it
Right.
and working in public health. So when I was about 16, I
Mm-hmm.
was a junior in high school. I our major hospital in Atlanta, Grady Hospital. You basically know some of it. Anybody listen know the rappers talk about being Grady babies.
Mm-hmm.
Grady Hospital, where they had this big program, and we were team leaders. And they had so we were in high school, but they had so every child in Georgia in the 8th grade had to take health.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of that health class, they talked about sexual and reproductive health. So Grady had the idea with Atlanta Public Schools to say we're going to have teens who are juniors and seniors in high school talk to 8th grade students about
Oh
postpone,
wow.
and the curriculum was called postponing sexual involvement.
Okay.
So I joked that it was changed, and not joked. It actually did change. This was during the Bush administration,
Oh
so we
God.
became. Eventually, it was like abstaining from sex before marriage. They were like, "We talking just abstinence only education." So that evolution happened. People complained about it, and I know that that program has evolved. But it was my first foray into health education,
Okay.
and I liked doing that. I liked talking about the curriculum. I liked connecting with kids and talking about just this issue and really sharing this knowledge. and really and adding to what people were talking about, the body and sexual reproductive health, but we were talking about relationship dynamics and
Mhm.
navigating peer pressure and understanding what some things that can happen because of sex, not bringing the sex into your life before you're ready for it, because
Mhm.
all these consequences could happen. So I mean, it had its merits. I'm sure now it's more evolved and whatever, but
Yeah.
that was my first taste of like, oh, I like educating the community about health issues.
Okay.
And so that led me to when I got to college, I went to Morehouse for undergrad. So that I worked for Planned Parenthood. I hit all the big points. I worked for
Yes.
Planned Parenthood all throughout college. I was and I worked with I was a community health educator. I was an intern with them, an educator. So they had teen action group program, which was similar to what I did, where we talked about sexual reproductive health. It got to the point where a lot of the RAs at Morehouse found out I was doing this. And so I would talk to dorms, freshman dorms, about
Oh
STDs.
wow.
We had this presentation that had all of these gonorrhea, chlamydia pictures, genital warts,
Oh
just the
God.
shock value stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
to show this is what could happen to you. This is what this looks like. And you don't know what's happening in the dark. And I mean, that was, our kind of lazy way to do it, but it did cause a conversation in that. And so,
Mhm.
that was a fun process for me too. And so I discovered public health while I was during my time at Morehouse. We had a public health sciences institute. I was able to do that as a minor. And I think it led me just to stick with it. I wound up at Emory getting an MPH, and public health was just something I found I was pretty good at. I understood it. I saw a role, a place for myself in it. I saw an
Mhm.
opportunity to do good. I like the way that public health practitioners think. I like the combination of like hard sciences with social sciences,
Mhm.
with community engagement, like hard biostatistics and epidemiology, but talking about behavioral health and research and program evaluation. So I really was into all of that
Okay.
realm of public health, and so I was really just, oh, I'm good at this, and I was comfortable enough to develop a career. My granddaddy died unhappy with me because I never became a doctor,
Mhm.
but he didn't know as an administrator. I did not say I told doctors what to do, but I did
Yeah. Yeah.
govern and provide oversight, and we were really working on that. So I think it was a calling. I don't know,
Okay.
but I do know that it's something that makes me feel good. It's something that I'm proud of.
Mhm.
I'm proud that I've stuck with it. I'm proud of where my career is going. I'm proud of even being in this moment with you, talking about it. Connecticut's been amazing, has given me amazing opportunities, and something I just was like, oh, I'll just check this out. And public health has evolved so much
Yeah.
over the past like 20 years. I
Yeah.
went over 20 years of history, what we're talking about, and things I get to do now. So that's and I enjoy what I do. I enjoy capacity building and working with nonprofits on and working with organizations and people on a very basic level.
Mhm.
But I think this concept of this podcast is really appealing to me because really talk how do we talk about health equity and make it the norm?
Right.
How do you connect maternal child health with educational opportunities and
Yep.
career opportunities? How do we connect history with incarceration, with voting opportunities, which turns with funding and elected officials? Like there's a whole model, and
Yeah.
not making it so convoluted, but saying we're all really in this together, functioning and working. So I
Right.
don't know if I answered your question,
You did.
but
You did.
that's like
Like,
me and how
yeah.
I wound up in this space.
Okay. And so you said you've been in Connecticut for 10 years.
Mhm.
All right. So can you talk to me about your Connecticut health journey?
That's been a fun ride. That's been it's funny that this was supposed to be a 2-year fellowship that I got from Connecticut Health Foundation.
Mhm.
They gave them 2 years of funding. My first job, if you go on LinkedIn, look me up, Health Equity Fellow.
Wait, do you still have that old profile picture up or
I don't. I had remember I had those expensive headshots taken, and
Yes.
I look different now. But I had that picture forever, and that
Okay.
picture came from St. Francis when I was a health equity fellow, and it was a 2-year thing. I was doing research on African American men's health. I was working with the Curtis Robinson Center for Health
Mhm.
Equity.
Mhm.
Curtis is a legend in Connecticut. I mean, what an honor to come and enter with the work that he was doing with prostate cancer work for
Mhm.
men. So I was just. It was just opportunities were just kind of falling out of the sky. So about 3 months in, my vice president at the time, who I was reporting to, said, "Hey, we want to keep you here permanently." And Pat Baker joked about, we want to keep you here permanently. It's like, oh, they just saying that. Funding's going to run out in 2 years. I'm going to pack my bags and my Outcast CDs and go back to Atlanta. Like, that was like the
Yeah,
plan from
yeah.
day one. I had an apartment, not, make friends, met you very early on, but
Mhm.
just wasn't, yeah. And lo and behold, probably about a month or so before the 2 years ended, they were like, we hiring you permanently, we're giving you a raise. And so I stayed for an additional 3 years in that position. And then I started to kind of Trinity. So I was at St. Francis when Trinity Health acquired them. That opened up more opportunities to talk about health equity. That
Mm.
they were really interested in the work we were doing at the Curtis Robinson Center for Health Equity and how we engaged the community, how we looked at community health. And that model, we had, and all of a sudden, I'm having these conversations with people all over the country who work for Trinity about work that we're doing. So after that, I went to so in my time in Trinity, they also acquired St. Mary's Hospital in Waterbury.
Oh
Waterbury has
wow.
a special place in my. I call them Waterbury Strong. I love Waterbury. I love the 2 years I spent there. So I was director of community health, and like really able to like talk about how what was the hospital's role in community health and well-being. Like
Mhm.
what does it mean to have St. Mary's at the table beyond funding conversations? How do we like one of my biggest kind of flagship things that we were trying to do was looking at St. Mary's as a major employer in the city of
Mhm.
Waterbury.
Mhm.
I think probably was the second largest employer in the city.
Wow.
And um, that's a big deal. Getting a job at a hospital is life changing.
Right.
It's respectable. You have a living wage. Everybody knows you. So like that changes you being able to care for yourself and your role in the community is elevated just
Right.
working at the hospital.
Right.
But there were some questions about is it equitable? Does everybody in the town of Waterbury have an equal opportunity to get a job here? I don't answer that
Mm.
question today. I'm just saying that was the question
Mhm.
that was raised.
Mhm.
And so we were talking about economic stability, and so much good work was going on in Waterbury because they had a high unemployment rate. So they had a Working Cities Challenge grant. They had this Reba Aspira that was there at the time. Bridges to Success, like all these people I still work with. Shout out to Althea will be here. Shout out to Althea for that too. But it was just all this great work was happening around that. Unfortunately, COVID came and
Mm.
derailed a lot of it. But fun time. So then, out of nowhere, I had a lot of respect for the CEO at Charter Oak, and she had a position for chief of staff. And I wanted to try my hand at the C-suite and say, what can I do
Wow.
as a C-suite person? And that was life changing. That FQHCs are just so pivotal to our communities.
Agree.
Like we don't even and I knew what an FQHC was in
Mhm.
theory, but just the work that they do, the patients that they serve, and how like nationwide
Yep.
we're having these conversations about this funding and these resources. And so it was just such honorable work and such passionate work. Like it felt good to be there because we had a basic mission. We're providing care to anybody that needs it, regardless of ability to pay.
Yep.
Like we're not creating barriers for care. We won't be responsible for that.
Right.
When the hospitals, if somebody's turned away or can't pay, they come to us. We care for them. We treat them. And so that was just a beautiful time to work with. And so recently, I left Charter Oak and position opened up a health equity position. NDPH opened, and I think it really hit all cylinders of things I've done and things I
Mhm.
talk about. So it's just been fun. I just am like, oh my god, I get to do this great work,
Yeah.
and things fit so well. And I hope that my past and my experiences, I can use those constructively to develop some solid systems that stay in place,
Yeah.
that after I go wherever I go or whatever happens, that I hope that change because I don't want to be seen, as a careerist or like moving just because granted you want your career to advance, you want to have more
Mhm.
opportunities and more influence, but really, is your work like are you leaving something good behind?
Yeah.
I like to think that I did
Mhm.
directly or indirectly. But yeah, so I'm super excited about this next path, and I hope to be sharing what I can with that here on our podcast.
Excellent. Excellent.
What's your favorite health equity topic? Like that's such a silly question, but like
Mm.
what like really gets your blood flowing, gets you excited? Like when you think about in just health equity, health any topic that we could have on this show, we talk about how we're demystifying it
Mhm.
and all the different legs that we have to health equity. What leg are you like? That's my jam. If you were Miss America,
Oh my
and
God.
Miss Health Equity America, what's your platform, Miss Clark?
So it would have to be the intersectionality of all the things, right? So like I live talking about the social determinants of health,
Mm.
right? And so I feel like we can't just talk about one without considering how it impacts all the others, and how racism, institutional and structural racism,
Hmm.
influence all of the social determinants of health, and how hospital systems, how state departments, no offense, um, and their policies and conflicting practices sometimes, often converge to create the pool that we are all swimming in that has crap floating in it.
Mm.
It's killing people early,
Hmm.
um, and it's keeping us like super sick. And so it's really about like connecting all of those things. I was talking to someone yesterday, and I said it would be great if we could like get our commissioners to talk and consider, just as an example, right? Like if we're talking DPH and DSS and maybe DMIS, and consider all of the different ways that all of the different policies that they have, right? So if to enroll for Husky or for EBT, SNAP benefits, there are these certain requirements that you have to have, right? And like how, what barriers are put there that keep people locked out, right? So people are hungry. Sidebar. I was at a retreat last week, and uh, Mr. Amos from the Action Agency in New Haven, he said, you know, some of this language really bothers me. He was like, people aren't food insecure, they're hungry.
Mm.
And I was like, you're right, they're hungry. They're not insecure about the food. They don't have any. So right, thinking about like how all these systems, like all of these players, like all of, even sometimes the work that we do on the ground, how sometimes that creates like these barriers. So for me, it's really about pulling all that together and pulling back the curtain and be like, we're actually part of the thing. Like this whole machine is an issue. So I feel like that would be
I love
the
it.
the
You won.
biggest thing.
You won the
I'd
pageant.
like to thank the
Yeah, you
Academy.
won the pageant, Miss America. You love it. I love it. I love that. It's good to know.
Yeah, and I, as the founder of the Black Health Collective and the co-chair, a lot of where I center the work that I do is it rests with us.
Hmm.
Full stop. Um, so we can have conversations about like how people are reporting on their health and what the health status of Black folks is, right? We can't do that without also talking about the ways that these systems have interacted to like design community, to create policies like that keep us unhealthy. So I want to make sure that hopefully we'll be able to use this also while we're elevating the work that our colleagues are doing, that we're also bringing on folks who have these adverse experiences, and like we're lifting these folks' voices, and we're making sure that all the work that we do is really serving them, right? So it's the programmatic stuff, it's the policy stuff, it's all of those things entirely. I'm looking forward to rolling up these sleeves
I love it.
and getting in the thick of all the stuff
I
and
love that.
fixing it.
I love you know. As I asked that question, I was like, "Well, I wonder what mine was," and I couldn't, and I landed on what it was.
What's your jam?
You know, black maternal child health really gets under my skin,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not. And I use this example all the time, but I just had trouble like processing the the rates of death, like low birth weight babies, death, high economic. I mean, all these stats are crazy about higher economic status. More likely you're gonna have these issues, and like a lot of people are elevating like the two legendary examples of Serena
Yes.
Williams
Eh,
and Beyonce,
right.
like almost having like almost fatal complications in
Right.
childbirth, and it's like, damn, darn. If they can't go in safely, how do I make sure my sisters are safe when they go to,
Right.
or people birthing people are safe? That's a fun, So I always think about that. Um, Often I don't do a lot of work directly in that,
Mhm.
but I just am like it's always every time I see an article or see a story about it, it just gets my attention in a way. I wonder like what constructively I could do,
Yeah.
but it's something about that it always like halts my attention because I mean it's birth,
Right. Right.
and like you can't do that safely or
Right.
healthily. And I mean, we know the hospital has had issues, and we have a lot of people doing work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in these spaces. But
Mhm.
it's that something about that has just always landed my attention.
Yeah. That is another priority of the BHC.
I know,
So I am super excited to lean into that, especially since the Connecticut Health Foundation also has listed it as one of their priorities
right?
in the strategic plan, on which one of your friends is on the cover.
Cover
I'm just
girl,
saying.
she's a cover. She's a cover girl for good reason. Yes.
um, so that's another topic that we'll probably have here a lot.
Yeah, I mean it needs space to breathe
Yeah,
because when you talk about the different factors that are associated with it,
right.
it's wild.
Right. Like to know that, and I mean, we saw this example in unnatural causes is an inequity make and inequality making us sick. They used inequality, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, where they talk about a black woman with an advanced degree who is like upper middle class or whatever, she's well off, into prenatal care, eating healthy, exercising, doing all of the things, she is still more likely to have a low birth weight baby than a white woman who hasn't finished high school.
Yeah, I think it was 10th grade. They were having the same rates of a white woman. I think in 10th
Right.
grade education. I don't quote me. I can't. We had
Yeah.
to do our homework before we
Yes.
do this. So a lot of reading is going to happen on both of our
Yeah.
parts. So we're not out here saying wrong information
Right.
and getting called because the people will call us out.
Well,
And we encourage. I encourage it.
yes, yes. Tell us right off.
Yeah, yeah. Tell
Gather
us. Yeah, like
us.
make sure we're not because I think we want to provide information, not misinformation.
Right,
Enough of that's
right,
going
right.
on. But yes,
Yes, that's it's infuriating. Did you see Aftershock?
yes. Hmm. I mean, it's and I think a way too to like ground all of these different things
Mm-hmm.
into the conversation is so important and how it impacts our state.
Right.
Connecticut's a very interesting state, and I think diving into that.
Right, because if you have these things that say Connecticut is the fourth healthiest state,
Right.
and it's like, okay, but let's do some digging
Yeah.
because the gap
Hmm. Huge.
massive, and
Wild.
like
I'll say
we
use
got
those
we got to
wild a
fix
lot.
that.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got to fix that.
There we go. Well, this was a great first, I think, meet Lawrence, meet Stephanie,
Yes.
your host for Health Equity CT
Yes.
podcast, Health Equity TEA
Yes.
CT, as in Connecticut podcast. We're spilling the health equity NCT. All of those things, all those monikers will come to pass
Our logo
very
has to
soon.
have a tea bag
Yes,
hanging
all
off
of
of
it.
it.
We're gonna. That's all of that's
Yes.
coming soon. But we look forward to connecting with you, and providing some solid information and just being a space to share information and a
Yes.
resource. So this is really
Yes.
exciting.
Yes. And big ups to our videographer, our producer, the man, the legend, Frank Colmenares.
Frank is cheering. That's right. I'm gonna allow. We're gonna get the round of applause coming soon too. Thank
Yes.
you.
Oh, we need one of those
We're gonna do
things.
all of that's coming.
Brr, 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 brr.
I'll just see you gonna get
That's what I
carried
want.
away.
Maybe you should be in control because
I
I'm.
don't know. Yes. All right.
Yes. And cut.